clasps that we have. I'm also going to show you how to attach these clasps, which the clasps I'm referring to we've had for a while in sterling silver, and we decided to get them in some plated material too in case you didn't want something as pricey. And we are looking at the Slide Bar Clasp. So the Slide Bar Clasp has a lot of uses for looming, for seed beading, for tying on leather, for doing multiple different kinds of beads and getting an end that way. But I wanted to show you the simple way to basically attach a peyote strip to the clasp. If you need any of the slide bars or want to check them out, below the video there is a time date stamp that says when the video was produced and published for you guys to check it out. And if you click there, there's a show more button down at the very end. That show more button at the end will give you links to purchase the Slide Bar Clasps from us online. The Slide Bar Clasps come in a number of different finishes. Like I said, we have them in sterling silver, we have them in silver plated, we have them in antique brass, gold plated, and then antique copper plated as well. So you get a number of different, basically we hit all of the metal different colors for you. They also come in a number of different sizes and length. This is going to be important for you to know what size you are doing and what size your pieces that you're working on. They come in everything from 31.5 millimeter down to 26.5, then down to 21.5 millimeter, and then down to 16.5 millimeter. When you're looking at them and working with them, it depends on what kind of bead you're using, how many beads and how many rows wide. Like I said, you also could use this for macrame or working with leather and for knotting off as well. The Slide Bar Clasps open by pulling them apart from end to end, which is going to be a nice, almost safety clasp for you, since normally the pressure will come this way. So it's a nice clasp that stays nice and closed for you and pulls open to the side. It has a little bit of a trigger there that is going to be put pressure on, and it'll slide in. Like I said, we have them in the different sizes, and they go right in there, and your peyote strip, your leather, your cotton, your ribbon is going to stick right in there. For ribbon, you would do the same thing. Just insert your ribbon through the bar, fold over, and either sew or glue. For leather or hemp, you're most likely going to knot onto the bar or pull the thread through the bar and then knot. And for peyote strips or seed bead strips like this, you're generally going to fold the piece over and loop on that way if you're not going to sew through and sew the thread directly onto the bar. Like I said, they come in a number of different finishes as well as those 4 sizes for you. And additionally, you can check out the beginning peyote video that we publish, which is also using these too. To finish off these clasps, one way that you can do it is actually sew under and then sew beads through. The other way, like I've done it here, is to actually take your peyote strip that I did and put it through the loop and connect it, folding it over on the other side. The bar clasps, the Slide Bar Clasps, come in packages of 5, so you have and they're pretty inexpensive. You can play around a little bit with them and use them for a number of different uses. I'm going to show you now how to actually attach to the bar clasp. So attaching to the Slide Bar Clasp, you want to make sure when you start that you keep the bar connected to the other side. This is going to open you up for less errors by having them line up in the opposite way, which then you'll have a fold in your peyote if you have to wear it, or you'll have to cut it apart. So we don't want to have to do that. So I like to keep the actual clasp together. Make sure I'm putting the project together correctly. And this is the same is true with the slide clasps that have the loop rather than the slide bar. I start with them together, start a stitch or two for them to put the other side on, and then I'll take it apart so it's easier to work with. So to start for a peyote, for example, I'm going to take my peyote strip that I'm finished now, and I'm going to take my thread and my needle through the bar. I'm going to tuck the thread and needle behind the bar and then flip over the project and line up my peyote stitch. Going about 6 rows back, I have my thread and needle coming out the very end of the peyote stitch. I'm going to sew back about 6 stitches, going in from one of the end beads to another end bead. When I sew in there then, I'm going to bring my thread out. For a lot of these patterns, you can line them up exactly so that your pattern continues throughout the project. I'm going to then sew up onto the zigzag and down below in the same line that my thread is coming out of. So I'm starting with one line and I'm making sure that the thread piece, or the piece that's on the strip, I'm going through the exact same row, and the piece that is at the very end of the strip, I'm going through the bead that's sticking out, just like if I was finishing off or adding a peyote strip. So I'm going to go through the bead sticking up, then catch the bead below in that same row. This is going to be zigzagging then. I'm not going to pull it tight so you can see the thread. Next, go to a bead that's sticking up and go to the next bead in that peyote line on the actual strip. You can see that zigzag of thread going on. Next bead sticking out. Next bead in the strip. Next bead sticking out. And depending on how long your peyote strip is, you may want to start, which I'm going to start doing right now, taking it and pulling it tight and making sure that all that thread is pulled tight and you don't see any extra thread sticking out. From here, I'll go back in. And at this point now too, I can let my clasp go. Double check if you want that it's going to line up nicely. And then I'll go back to this end here, sewing away from me now, going through the next bead along the line of the peyote strip, and then coming back to the next bead sticking out along the end of that strip. So I'm just zigzagging back along the peyote and attaching it to the clasp. I like this style clasp for this purpose. Also for looming projects, you can fit a delica, a 15, and 11 curved over the rows. So you can fit those sizes back in here. When I get to the end then, I'm going to be coming out the very end of my peyote. And from here, I'm going to sew into the same color bead at the end of the strip and close that off. You can see it creates a nice seamless tube that you can barely see which side is which. The more you wear it too, the more that it'll work in itself. From here, I'm going to go back and sew back through the project a little bit in order to knot off the thread and reinforce that connection spot. When I get to a point that I feel like I'm happy with the reinforcement, I'll grab a bridge thread or a thread that's going between the beads and try to sew underneath a bridge thread and out. With the delicas, it's a little bit hard to get under those bridge threads. With an 11-0 seed bead or even an 8-0 seed bead, it's much easier. I'm going to sew through one of those bridge threads there. And if you need to and you're working with a size 10 needle, you can switch to a 12. And I'm going to make a loop and sew through that loop once, twice, and give a nice tight pull. I'll do this about 3 times and then keep continuing to sew back along my peyote stitch or my looming place or whatever other projects you may be attaching to these slide bar clasps. So I always want to bring the thread back a little bit away from the clasp, and then when I'm comfortable with where it is and I've done my couple knots, I'll take my thread zap and I'll burn the thread down and create a nice bald end with that thread zap. It's going to go nice and seamlessly then onto the project, and when you put the clasp on, it just looks like a nice continuation and it has a nice flow on the actual clasp that's working with it. This here is the 26.5 millimeter clasp. So if you're wondering about that, I ended up doing this peyote pattern and just kind of playing with it. The peyote pattern here that I did is actually the exact same as the chevron V, the crystal V bracelet. So if you want to check it out, you can check out the crystal V bracelet. And when I sew in, again, I try to make sure that I'm consistent with that pattern and that the pattern is actually ending at the same place. With a simple peyote strip, you want to do the same thing, making sure that you're actually ending the beads along the same color and kind of keeping with your row. Again, looming, same deal. You put the beads through, fold them over, and then sew up those ends as well. If you get a chance, I'm really having fun playing around with these slide bar clasps, and I think the nice feature of them is that a lot of the tension comes from side to side that you have your clasp or your portion or your project on. I like that you have to open them the opposite way, which is going to prevent them from accidentally opening or from you losing your clasp or you losing your piece rather. So if you get a chance, have fun to kind of pick up some of these slide bar clasps. Check them out. I'll be using them in some more projects now that we have some more of them to work with, and using them with some leather and some macrame and some other things that I have going on. If you like this video and you want to stay connected, learn more things, check out new things at the Potomac Bead Company, as well as learn new techniques. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and stay connected with me that way. You can also ask to become a member of our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making and interact with us that way as well. Check out a lot of the new stuff that we post, that we play with. Check out wonderful designs and ideas from other beaders that love to make jewelry and love to inspire as well. You can also check us out on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest. And again, shop with me online at potomacbeads.com. As always, thank you so much for watching. And if you get a chance to get a hold of some of the slide bar clasps, have fun creating.